My name is Thomas Delmar, and I oversee the Arms Military sales at Olympia Auctions. This brief examination of the crossbow has been brought about by May Day, which has now passed with little noise. In years gone by, this time was celebrated as the start of summer, with crossbow shooting at a bird on a tall pole or popinjay, a tradition that continues to this day in many countries, though this year it will have been unanimously cancelled for the first time. The earliest crossbows are recorded around the 2nd and 1st millennia BC in China. A number of fittings and mechanisms from this period survive, some of which are exquisitely decorated, illustrating their prized status at this early date. A little later they are depicted on the sculptures of the Terracotta Army, and in the summer of 2018 a remarkably complete example was found at that site. Whether it was from China that the Greeks gained their inspiration for their crossbows may be a matter of conjecture, but they certainly had massive siege engines built on the same principle, and similar handheld weapons are described by the Greek mathematician Hero of Alexandria. The Romans also used crossbows, as shown in this relief carving on Trajan's column, and it is also understood they were used by the Goths during the migration period. Some historians claim, as with so many things, that the crossbow disappeared from Europe in the so-called Dark Ages, between AD 500 and 900. Though we might also attribute this more to lack of evidence than proven absence, and the crossbow was certainly in lethal use by the siege of Senlis in 947. At the time of the First Crusade in 1096, the Byzantine historian Princess Anna Komnena describes this weapon in detail, including its loading and powerful dispatch with bolts that may then pass through a shield, a breastplate and city walls. And those who are hit by it die without feeling a mighty blow. She concludes, it is the invention of the devil. This theme continues, and the crossbow was banned for use on Christians by Pope Innocent II at the Second Lateran Council in 1139. The realization that a weapon is either novel or had become more effective led to attempts to restrict it, as with the pistol in the 16th century and the airgun in the 18th. The crossbow ban was unsuccessful, and soon after the Lateran Council, a Munich chronicler noted that it had little effect and became ever more popular for conflicts and games. In 1199, Richard I, the Lionheart, was killed by a crossbow bolt at the siege of Chaluz Castle in Normandy. His death was considered a divine judgment. The king, shown here, in a fictional joust against Saladin, had been a proponent of this weapon, like many other contemporary military leaders, and is said to have killed many Saracens with it. There can be little doubt that it was stealth, as well as the efficacy of the crossbow, that made it both popular and viewed with suspicion. The ability to silently assassinate was realised early on, and, in 1980, caught popular attention when Roger Moore and his team of SBS troops boarded an oil tanker in North Sea hijack or assault force. Kramer should not have taken the cigarette. In the course of the 15th century, the increased use of firearms in warfare saw the diminished employment of the crossbow. Guns had proven themselves as early as the Hussite Wars, shown here on a tile from Prague, during which, around 1431, it was decided that the imperial marksmen and the infantry should be divided equally between crossbowmen and those armed with half handguns. Here is the crossbow of Count Ulrich V of Württemberg, dated 1460, now preserved in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York. This is the earliest dated crossbow in existence and is extensively decorated, including finely carved staghorn panels. It has the arms of Count Ulrich and his third wife, Princess Marguerite of Savoy. This prestigious commission was no doubt much prized by its recipient, who was one of the most powerful nobles in southern Germany and an avid huntsman. It is fitted with a near-contemporary composite bow, so called as it was made of layers of horn, wood and sinew. It is missing its iron stirrup at the front, which would have been used to steady it when being spanned. This was achieved with a winding device called a kranikin. This late 16th century example was made in Augsburg and will be offered in our next auction. By the middle of the 15th century, composite bows started being replaced by those of steel, such as this example made for the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I, another passionate hunter. It is dated 1508-15 and now preserved in the Kunsthistorische Museum, Vienna. The steel bow was made in Aragon, Spain. The novel bow is of interest here, as it received a mixed response from the imperial court. Here we see the emperor's Theodank, using such a bow that has been passed to him by the villain Unfallo, and it breaks, and the servant standing by is lucky to escape with an apparent minor injury and the loss of his hat. At one point his preference was for a composite bow, as it would not break when frozen, though he did later win a match by shooting a chamois 200 yards of a steel bow. This highly decorated South German crossbow was made around 1 decade later in 1526. It was offered in one of my first sales at Sotheby's and acquired by the Royal Armouries, Leeds. Much of its surface is adorned with superb polychrome enamels, including 2 coats of arms. The figures, abbreviated inscriptions and beasts were no doubt deliberately obscure, perhaps with hidden meanings enjoyed by the select few who shared the owner's erudition. The utility of the crossbow's stealth made it ideal for hunting, and perhaps it was for this reason that it remained popular long after it left the battlefield. Hunting was a pastime reserved for the highest elite, as William Harrison observed in his description of England in 1577. It is against the law for any man to have or to make chase a park or free warren without good warranty of the king, or to set up or enclose any ground for the aforesaid purposes within his own soil without the king's warrant and grant. It follows that the weapons used in the chase were suitably embellished. Relatively few crossbows were made compared to other hunting weapons, as evidenced from their proportionally smaller inclusion in contemporary inventories. This large South German crossbow will be included in our next auction. It dates to the last quarter of the 16th century and probably originates from a Saxon workshop. It is decorated with numerous allegorical figures, those of Venus, Ceres, and an amorous couple, along with 2 coats of arms, no doubt those the husband and wife that were its original owner, as we have already seen on other examples. The ornament on the tiller, with its patterns of tightly scrolling foliage, is related to contemporary firearms attributed to Saxony, such as this wheel-lock pistol we sold in 2013, and also other pieces from the neighbouring land of Thuringia, such as this other pistol sold by us in June 2014. Returned to England at the end of the 16th century, there was a preference for lighter bows, which were ideally suited for the Tudor huntress, including Elizabeth I, whose love of the chase is well documented. The French ambassador reported, on August the 15th, 1591, when Elizabeth was at Cowdray, she killed a number of deer with a crossbow and shot at a herd of 30 imprisoned in a paddock for her entertainment. Later in the day, she saw 16 of them pulled down by greyhounds on the lawn. Quite a full day hunting. This next highly decorated bow will also be offered in our forthcoming auction. It was made in Germany and dates to the middle of the 18th century. It is again of large size. It is built to a similar design as the earlier example, perhaps reflecting the efficacy that was realised relatively early on, as well as a conservative taste. The decoration, though, is more contemporary. The bow retains some of its paint and the stock is finely inlaid, both comprising a delicate trellis pattern that would have been instantly recognisable to the mid-18th century onlooker as that of an elaborate royal or noble hunting enclosure. The marine monster that has been snagged is reminiscent of earlier Saxon firearms. Additionally, this crossbow has a distinguished provenance, having last been sold by Sotheby's in 1983 by the Lord Astor of Hever. This sale continues to resonate with collectors of arms and armour as one of the historic auctions within living memory. Sadly, I was unable to attend as I was at school that day. There is much more to explore on this topic, and I hope this brief exploration has been of interest. Perhaps we may return sometime to the rich traditions of crossbow shooting that have lasted from the Middle Ages until the present day. Look further at Chinese repeating crossbows that fired numerous bolts in quick succession, the stonebow makers of Wigan in 18th century England, or Venetian assassins' bows of the 17th century, and the popinjay shooting that used to take place in the City of London at Aldgate in the late 16th century. Thank you for listening, and please do get in touch if you'd like to learn more about one of our upcoming auctions, or visit olympiaauctions.com.